It's time for the Covrprice Top 10. We're going back 3 years. All right, guys, it's time for the Covrprice Top 10. We're going back 3 years. This list comes to us from our friends over at Covrprice. This is a retrospective look focusing on the top 10 from 3 years ago. I'll take you through how each title sales compare from 3 years ago's market to today's current value. How did these comics do? What had a boost? What had a bust? And let's start right into it. Ooh, don't forget, Covrprice discount code down below in the description. Let's get to number 10. This is Strange Academy number 1. In 2020, Strange Academy was the hit of the year with one of the hottest aftermarket sellers, landing on our top 10 list repeatedly between its release in March of 2020 and this particular top 10 in September of 2020. It hit highs of $40 raw and $208 in a 9.8. 3 years later, this ultimately hit an all-time high of $525 in a 9.8 in 2022. Today, it's currently trending around $200 for a CGC 9.8. While this is a bust compared to 2022 sales, it's a break even when compared to graded sales in 2020. A high-grade raw copy of Strange Academy number 1 is currently trending at $100. When you compare it to 2020's raw sale of $40. This is a significant boost in 3 years. While spec has died down around this series, there's still loads of potential. In January, several outlets reported that a Strange Academy series starring MCU favorite Wong may be in development at Disney+. So this book remains a good one to hold. Overall, it stands at a break even for graded and a boost for raw. And don't forget, guys, there are a ton of variants for Strange Academy number 1, as well as multiple printings. Let's get to number 9. This is Miles Morales Spider-Man number 6. 3 years ago, the hype around Miles Morales was inescapable. At the time, Spider-Man Miles Morales was on fire, and this issue featuring Starling, aka the Vulture's granddaughter, was pretty hot. Raw copies were going for $35, and graded copies were in a 9.8, sitting at $200. 3 years later, those numbers have dipped. Currently, near mint raw copies of this book are going for about $25, while 9.8s have decreased to $130, making both a bust, but a relatively modest one. While great potential remains for Tiana Toombs in future Spider-Verse movies, there's nothing concrete on the horizon, making this a bust for now. I forgot what I was going to say about that, and it was a really good point, but instead, maybe it'll come back to me later. Let's just get to number 8. This is Batman number 99, the Jorge Jimenez Nightwing 1 in 25 variant. When they debuted in 2020, these design variants were surprisingly popular. Usually after the first few variants, some fatigue sets in, and this was true for this run by artist Jorge Jimenez. It hit highs of $40 raw and $60 upon its release in 2020, and 3 years later, those numbers have dropped slightly to $27 raw, $50 for 9.8. I think $60 was the 9.8 price. That makes it a bust, but not much for raw and graded copies. The all-time high graded copies was close to $80 a few years back. Not a huge thing. Oh, that's what I was gonna say, guys. Like, just don't be the. I think I talk about this a lot. Just don't. It's hard to predict, so this is kind of silly even to say, but just as long as you're not the people, the person, the individual buying at the peak, patience. Have patience. Don't fall for FOMO on anything. However, there are some books, particularly one on this list that is a true Silver Age key that we are going to talk about, where I'm just happy to see it. Let's get to number 7. This is Amazing Spider-Man number 365. Whether it was general spec or the sale of a newsstand 9.8 sale for $1,225, the hype for Spider-Man 2099 was high in 2020. Near mint raw copies for this book were selling for $15, 9.8s were moving for $224. 3 years later, raw copies have seen an uptick, jumping to an average of $20, and graded 9.8 copies of this book have dipped to $153, making it a bust. The high mark for this book seems to have come and gone with the release of Into the Spider-Verse, but this is primarily due to the collectors now favoring Spider-Man 2099 number 1 for its excellent cover, and it's 90 nostalgic foil. I'll be honest with you guys, this is a very difficult book to get in a 9.8. It's a very thick cover, and it has the hologram, or thick book, and the hologram. So some people say you can press them, some people say you can't. Either way, black cover, thick cover, hologram on the cover, very difficult to get in a 9.8. So I don't really understand why this book is dipped so much, because I think it is a cool cover too. And yes, Spider-Man 2099 with the red foil is an awesome cover as well, but this is the true first appearance, so hey, I guess the market dictates what it dictates. Let's get to number 6. Yeah, 6. This is Araña, the Heart of the Spider, number 1. In 2020, there were unconfirmed rumors that Araña Corazon, I'm probably saying that wrong, and I'm sorry, would be the Spider-Woman in Olivia Wilde's Secret Spider-Woman project at Sony. Collectors responded by quickly escalating the market values for her first appearance in Amazing Fantasy number 1 to $22 raw, $56 to a CGC 9.8. 3 years later, the book has taken a big dip. In 2020, near mint raw copies now sit at $12 or 9.8. This is in 2022, near 2023. I'm confused. Anyway, 9.8 graded copies currently trend around $28. In monetary terms, this is a bust for both graded and raw copies, but spec may not be dead on this book. About a year ago, a few outlets reported Isabel Merced, I don't know how to say her name, had joined the cast of Sony's Madam Web, fueling new spec that she may be playing Anya Corazon. Corazon. Man, I'm butchering this. The focus will also lean more on her first appearance at Amazing Fantasy number 1. I'm done. Let's get to number 5. That was just a butcher. Horrible. Let's go to number 5. This is Undone by Blood number 1. This is the Robinson variant. In 2020, this book got hot after it was announced that Norman Reedus' production company, Big Bad Bald Productions, had optioned it. The 1 in 15 Robinson variant here hit a high sale of $65 for a raw copy. 3 years later, with no updated news, the project appears to have stalled. This was most likely additionally derailed by the 2020 announcement and recent release of Reedus' Walking Dead spin-off, locking Reedus' schedule up for the next couple of years. As such, there are no recent raw sales of the book in 2023, making it a bit of a bust. In 2020, the book was so new that 9.8 graded copies were non-existent. Now you can find one for less than $10, making it a disappointing bust. $10 for a CGC 9.8. I may go get one. Let's go to number 4. This is Avengers number 8. Here we go. Real key here. Kang the Conqueror was the only thing anyone watching the MCU wanted to discuss in the fall of 2020, which he nearly stole the finale of Loki, appearing as his variant, He Who Remains. In addition, there was speculation that he may be the villain in Ant-Man number 3. If you got in on Avengers number 8 during this 2020 top 10, very good raw copies of the book were selling for $250, and a CGC 7.5 sold for a high of $1,500. 3 years later, with a new season of Loki releasing, the book has seen an uptick, jumping to an average of $413 for a very good raw copy, $1,620 for CGC 7.5. Collectors must be mindful of Jonathan Majors' bad press, legal troubles, and unpredictable future in the MCU. If he's found guilty, that will likely end his role as Kang and put the character's future at risk. However, his book could see even more significant gains if he's cleared. For now, it's a boost. The one thing I will say about this book, yes, it is a true Silver Age key. If you are in this hobby for the long term, and I mean long term, do not buy this book. Wait. Because if you had bought an Iron Man 55, which is the first appearance of Thanos, back when he was all the hype, you would have paid way too much money because that book has come down. Still a major key, still a great book, but I can definitely foresee the same thing happening to Kang. If you want this book and you're patient, it will come down. You may have to wait a few years for the whole multiverse saga and Kang to go away. But when he does, I can definitely see this book coming down more. You know, not crazy amount, but I don't know if it should be at this. This value actually seems right, but you never know. I just be patient. Be patient with this one. Let's go to number 3. Amazing Fantasy number 1. The first appearance of Araña was super hot in 2020, with near mint raw copies of the book moving at $60 and $240 for CGC 9.8. Yet 3 years later, without any news and a major strike in Hollywood, much of the spec energy has drained. Today, you can grab a near mint raw copy for $35 and $140 on a 9.8, making this a bust. That number sparkly contrasts the book's high sale of $595 in October of 2020. My goodness. Araña may be a bust for now, but there's no telling what the future may hold, especially since the rumors are still swirling that actress Isabelle Merced may be playing Araña in the upcoming Madame Web film from Sony Pictures. Seems like a good time to buy. I still think any Spider-Man key is a good key. Just my opinion. Let's get to number 2. But before we do, I want to remind you guys there is a Covrprice discount code in the description down below. Check it out. I don't get anything if you use it. It's literally just for you guys. Try out Covrprice. It's a phenomenal tool. Let's get to number 2. This is X-Men number 12. Marked with an impressive Lionel U cover. This issue also featured the first appearance of the Summoners, Iska the Unbeaten, the White Sword, and the first cover appearance of the High Executioner. With Jonathan Hickman at the helm, expectations were high for this run of X-Men. In 2020, Raw sold for $20, but that number has seen a significant dip 3 years later, sitting at $3 for a near mint Raw copy in 2023. The book looks like a bust. At the time, there were no sales of a 9.8 graded copies. Today, one will cost you roughly $50, which is just a tad more what it would cost you to send it in. Hickman's run has changed the X-Men status quo in a big way. The future of the MCU is all on the Merry Mutants arriving. And with an array of great storylines, it's impossible to see some of these characters appear one day or become more prominent in the Marvel comic books. Seeing that these are back down to Covrprice, you really can't get much lower. Now's the time if you have the patience to hold on to this for the next decade or so. Yeah, Covrprice, why not? You probably get these really cheap. What are you gonna be? How are you gonna beat Covrprice? Just go ahead, go grab them if you want them. Let's get to our last one on the list. Here we go, number 1. This is Undone by Blood number 1. As previously mentioned, this book hit the top 10 list due to its attachment to Walking Dead star Norman Reedus and his production company. Sellers moved this book at $30 for near mint raw copies in 2020. 3 years later, the market has all but dried up in 2023, currently sitting at $3 for near mint raw. This book is a bust. Graded copies have done just as well, dipping from $100 in 2020 to a brutal $11 this year, making it a bust all around. Keep in mind that today's collecting market is not very patient with allowing books to grow slowly, which does fare well for content-based books that take years to develop, produce, edit, and release. At these prices, back down to Covrprice, if you believe Reedus, who mentioned in the announcement that he was excited about it, bringing this project to life at AMC, the current prices are fantastic to jump into, and plenty of deals can be found. These are silly prices for something if you have faith in it. Let's break this one down and get you out of here. 3 years later, we once again have a list of mostly busts. Yet, amidst these busts lie potential and opportunity. Almost all of these have possible future for renewed growth. Strange Academy and Kang are the 2 books to see significant growth in 3 years. Granted, one is a major grail, and the other is packed with first appearances that could feature tomorrow's hottest Marvel stars. We'll see as we revisit this list again in the future. Guys, make sure you check out Covrprice Top 10, or Covrprice.com, their movers and shakers list, and come back next time. We're going back 4 years. We're going all the way back to 2019. The 4-year ones are my favorite. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, keep it comics.